welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel from Evelyn and Peter, and today I have a little bit of a different video tutorial for you guys. So this one is not going to be a full video tutorial for my pattern. I just wanted to let you guys know upfront about that. If you want to make this vest, the written pattern is available free on my blog, but I am going to show you how to do the motifs within the vest and how to set yourself up to begin the back panel before you can move on to the main portion of the vest. So once you get this part out of the way, after that it's pretty beginner friendly, and I do apologize this isn't the full video tutorial. I am on a little bit of a time crunch currently, so I might go back and add a part 2 if I have enough requests for that. I can go back and make a part 2 of this video showing you how to do the entirety of the vest. But for this video tutorial, so here's the pattern. Super duper cute. I love it. And for this tutorial, I am showing you guys how to make the motifs that are along the bottom back portion of the back panel, and then I will show you guys how to join them together, and then as well as how to set up row 1 here before you can go into the back panel. Excuse the wrinkles, I need to give it a little steam, and I do have a couple ends not weaved in yet, so you can see how you know, tight on time I am currently, but I wanted to be able to get this portion of the video out for you guys when the pattern is released. So the pattern will be free on my blog. It'll also be available as a line brand kit, and I will link to those in the description. The kit comes with all the yarn you need to make your little vest, and then it also comes with a free copy of the PDF digital download of the printable pattern. They will email that to you, and then you can change the yarn color and pick whatever color you want of this yarn. And then they frequently have sales as well. So if you're subscribed to my newsletter, I'll let you know when they have really good sales, and it's a good deal. So you're paying for the yarn when it's on sale, and then the pattern is free. So that is available on their website. I'll link in the description, and then of course I'll have it in my Etsy shop as well as my Ravelry shop, and then obviously free on my blog, so you guys can follow along with that. So for this pattern, you're going to be using Cotton Bamboo Linen by Lion Brand, and this is just a fine weight 2 yarn. So you'll need that, and then we're also going to be using a 3.5mm crochet hook, and then you'll also need 4 stitch markers, and then just the normal stuff like scissors and a needle to weave in your ends and to sew some things together. So for this pattern, again, I'm going to show you how to do the motifs, which are worked in individual squares, and then you will sew them together depending on the size that you're making. You'll have a different amount for the back panel depending on which one you're doing, and then I will also show you guys how to set up the back panel and start row 1. So I just thought it might be helpful to have a visual for the most difficult part, which is that. And then after you get that part done, the rest of the vest is just half double crochet stitches. So you'll be working the back panel individually, and once you get the motifs done, you're just going to be working straight up in regular rows, and then we'll do a tiny bit of shaping here on the ends, and then you'll decrease up until you get to this portion here, and then you'll work straight for some rows, and then you'll add on a little bit more shaping here for the back straps, and then you will fasten off that. And the front panels are also done individually, and the front panels are the same except just swapped. The decreases are on the opposite side, and for that it's just half double crochet. You'll do them all in a straight row with no shaping up until you get to the underarm here, and then you'll do a little bit of shaping in the corner and just decreasing, and then just going straight into regular rows with no shaping, and then joining in to the straps from the back panel. So it really is very simple once you have the motifs and you get your row set up. After that, it's pretty straightforward. Half double crochet stitches, and then as long as you know how to do half double crochet 2 together, which is decreasing, you'll be able to get through it just fine. So that is pretty much it for this pattern. You also will be adding in some trim to add in a couple of buttons here, which is super simple, just single crochet around, adding in the buttons and then trim around the arm openings as well. So again, this is just the video tutorial for the motifs and setting up the back panel. And then if I have enough want from my lovely subscribers out there, or if I get enough requests for it, I might go back and add that once my schedule clears up a little. So yeah, that is all you need to know for this pattern. I hope you guys like it. Again, make sure you go to my blog. That's where the free pattern is. So you can find your size and you'll be able to make the rest of it by checking out the free written pattern. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video. To begin your motif, you're going to need to start off with a slip knot. So just go ahead and wrap your yarn around and then pull that loop through and tight to secure on your hook. And then we're going to be working a small series of chains here. So just yarn over and pull through a total of 6 times. And then once you have your chain 6 complete, we're going to slip stitch to join in that very first chain that we made. Just make sure that your chain isn't twisted here. And then I like to slip stitch in that back bump, but you can do it however you prefer. And then just yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook, creating a little circle. So now we're going to start round 1, and to do that, you're going to chain 6 again. So just yarn over and pull through a total of 6 times. And then this chain 6 counts as 1 stitch plus a chain 2 space. So the first 4 count as a treble crochet, and then the last 2 count as your chain 2 space in this pattern. So once you have the chain 6, you're going to yarn over your hook twice, insert your hook into the loop that we made. Make sure it's going into the actual loop and not into a stitch. And then you can also place that tail of yarn on your hook as well. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the final 2, and that is 1 treble crochet stitch. And then we're just going to chain 2, so yarn over and pull through twice. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to yarn over twice on our hook, insert our hook into the loop that we made, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the final 2. That is another treble crochet, and then chain 2. Again, work a treble crochet stitch into the loop. And you can see I'm working my stitches over the tail as well, just to secure that in. So we're just treble crochet and then chain 2, treble crochet, chain 2. We're going to do this for 7 times, so that way we have a total of 8 treble crochet stitches, because remember the beginning chain counts as 1 stitch. Let's continue with your 1 treble, chain 2, repeat this around until you have a total of 8 treble crochet stitches. Okay, so I have my 8 stitches here, and then make sure you don't forget to finish with a chain 2. You should have a chain 2 after that last stitch that you made, and then you can kind of maneuver them around on the loop and even them out. And then we're just going to slip stitch to join into that 4th chain of the starting chain 6. So count 4 chains up and then insert your hook and slip stitch to join. So after you slip stitch to join, that completes round 1. And then to begin round 2, we need to slip stitch over 1 more time. So in that very first chain 2 space, we're going to insert our hook and then just yarn over, pull through the loop on your hook, slip stitching to join so that we can continue on with round 2. So just in that very first chain space, slip stitch over. And then now we are going to be starting round 2, which begins with a chain 3. So just yarn over and pull through 3 times. And then we're going to start our first cluster. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the same space, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on your hook. Again, yarn over, insert your hook into the same space, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on your hook. And then for a third time, yarn over, insert your hook into the same space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on your hook. So this first cluster is going to be slightly different than the remaining clusters. You have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. So this one is just going to be a little bit different. We have 1 less repeat on our first cluster compared to the rest. After that, chain 1, and then we're going to work a second cluster in that same spot, and this cluster that we're about to do is going to be what the remaining clusters do. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Again, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And now instead of finishing here, we're going to do the repeat one more time. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. You have a total of 5 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 5. And this is what the remaining cluster stitches, what you'll be doing for them. After you do that, just chain 1, and then we're going to continue around. So you're going to make a cluster in the next chain space now. So just as I said before, you're going to be doing the same cluster as you did previously. So the only one that has 1 less repeat is that very first cluster due to that starting chain 3. So just work a regular cluster in this one, and then yarn over, pull through all 5. And then instead of chaining 1 here, you're going to be chaining 4 to create your corner. So yarn over and pull through 4 times, and then just work a regular cluster into the same space again. So I'm not going to repeat all of the yarn overs and how to do the cluster, but this is just a regular cluster. And each chain 2 space from the previous round will have 2 clusters worked into it. So that's how a way that you can keep yourself on track. Just make sure you have 2 clusters in every chain 2 space. And then now you're just going to chain 1. And then in the next chain 2 space, work a cluster. And again, I have this all in my written pattern. So if it's confusing to you with the clusters, you can follow along with the written directions. I have the definition. Chain 1 after that first cluster, and then work a second cluster into that same space. So you can read the definition as you go while you're working up these clusters if you can't keep track of it. It's really easy to just follow along with the definition. Yarn over, pull through all 5, chain 1 again, and then in the next chain 2 space, again, work a cluster. And after this cluster, we're going to be working a chain 4 to create the second corner. So work your cluster, yarn over, pull through all 5, and then now we're going to chain 4 just like we did in this first corner here. So in between each corner, you'll have a total of 4 clusters. So chain 4. And then we have to work a second cluster into that same spot. So work your cluster into the same chain 2 space. Just yarn over, pull through all 5. And then there's going to be a chain 1 in between this cluster and the next cluster. We're just going to be repeating this all the way around. Once you know how to do the cluster, it's just the same thing all the way around. And then just making sure in between every 4 clusters that you make that you do the chain 4 instead of the chain 1 to create the corners. So after this cluster, you're going to do a chain 1, and then we only have 1 in this space, so we need to make a second cluster in this space as well. And if this is too fast for you, you can always slow down the video. There's an option on YouTube where you can have the video go at a slower speed. So make sure you take advantage of that as well if you are a very, very beginner and need a slower version. Chain 1 after this cluster, and then work a cluster in the next chain 2 space. And then after this cluster is complete, you will be making another chain 4 to create that corner. So after you yarn over and pull through all 5, Now we're going to chain 4 because we have 4 clusters complete. Okay, and then we're just going to repeat that same thing again. So in that very same space, you're going to work your second cluster right after you did the chain 4. And then after you work that cluster, there's just a chain 1 in between. So chain 1 and then work 2 more clusters into the next space, making sure you separate them with the chain 1. So here's my first cluster, and then I will chain 1 and work a second cluster into the same spot. And I apologize for my camera going in and out and being blurry at certain parts. I'm not sure what's going on with that. So I apologize for that. So we're coming up on our last chain 2 space here, so we need to work another cluster into it. And then we're going to have to finish off with another corner as well. So work your cluster into that last chain 2 space. And then work your last corner. So you're going to chain 4. And then in that very same space, you're going to work your final cluster. So this is just a normal cluster, finishing off the round. So do as many repeats until you have the 5 loops on your hook, and then just pull through all 5. And then don't forget to finish with a chain 1 here to separate these 2 clusters. And then you're going to slip stitch to the top of the first cluster that you made. So make sure you're slip stitching into the top of the cluster, not the top of the chain 3. Just slip stitch into the top of the cluster. You can see this is our chain 1 space here that's separating the clusters. So you want to slip stitch into the very top of that first cluster to join. And then that finishes off round 2, and then we just have round 3 to complete, which is a round of single crochet stitches. So after you slip stitch to join, you should have a total of 16 clusters, and you should have 4 chain 4 spaces creating the corners. Start round 3, you're going to chain 1 and then work 1 single crochet in that very same stitch that you slip stitched to join. And then in that very first chain 1 space in between the clusters, you're also going to work a single crochet. So I'm just putting it into the space and not the actual chain. And then work a 3rd single crochet into the top of the next cluster. And then work a single crochet into the chain space, so in between the clusters. So I'm just putting it in the actual space instead of the chain. And then work a single crochet into the top of the next cluster. And then once you reach the first chain 4 space, you're going to be working 5 single crochet stitches into that chain 4 space. So after working into the top of the cluster, work 5 single crochet into this space. It'll help us turn the corner here. And then I also recommend putting a stitch marker into the 3rd single crochet that you made into this chain 4 space. So the center single crochet of the 5 that you made, you can put a stitch marker. And then in the top of that first cluster, work a single crochet. Make sure you're not skipping over it. And then in between these 2 clusters, work a single crochet. And then again into the top of the next cluster, work a single crochet. And then in between the next 2 clusters, work a single crochet. We're just going to be doing this all the way around. Work another one into the top of the cluster, and another one in between the 2 clusters, another one into the top of the cluster, and then we've reached the next chain 4 space, so we're going to work 5 single crochet stitches into it. Again, if you're making my vest pattern, I recommend putting a stitch marker into the 3rd single crochet made here, just to help keep you on track. If you are a beginner, it would be helpful. But if you can easily locate and find the center single crochet of the 5s in the corner, then You might not have to worry about it, but it is helpful to add it in if you need help pinpointing where your stitches are for later on when you are working your first row of the back panel. So this is just if you're making the vest. Then work a single crochet into the top of the cluster, a single crochet in between the clusters, a single crochet into the top of the cluster, a single crochet in between the clusters, single crochet into the top of the cluster, and in between the two clusters, one more into the top of the last cluster, and then we've reached our next corner, so work 5 single crochet. Again, you can put your stitch marker into the third one that you make here if you need help locating that stitch for later on, and then work into the top of the first cluster. That first one's a little bit confusing, so don't skip it, and then work in between the clusters, and then on top of the cluster, and then again in between the cluster, on top of the next cluster, in between the two clusters, on top of the last cluster here, and then we've reached our last corner. So again, work 5 single crochet into the last corner here. And then if you're putting stitch markers, don't forget to put a stitch marker into that third one that you made. And then work a single crochet on top of the cluster, and then don't forget to work a single crochet in between the clusters as well. So here's the one on top, and then don't forget these last 2 clusters. You need to work 1 final single crochet in between it, and then you're back at the beginning of the round, and you can just slip stitch to join into that very first single crochet that you made. You should have a total of 48 single crochet stitches for your motif for round 3. And these motifs are approximately 3 by 3 inches. And then depending on the size of the vest that you're making, if you're following along with my vest pattern, you'll need to make a different amount of motifs. So you'll need to refer to the pattern for that to find out how many that you need to make. And then I'm going to show you guys how to join them together and work the first row of the back panel of the vest. So I made a second motif here, and I've placed the stitch markers into that third center single crochet of each of the 5 single crochets in the corner so that I can easily show you how to join your squares. So if you're making the vest, you're going to obviously have at least 5 squares here, but I'm just going to show you with 2 on how to sew them together and to join the first row of the back panel. So you'll want to take your motifs and just make sure that they're all facing the same way. It doesn't matter which way you want to face them. I have my last stitch made is on the top of the motif here. You can see the tails of yarn are on the same side, and then you're going to be putting them right sides facing, sandwich them together, and then you're just going to take some yarn and your needle, and you're going to sew the sides together, just one of the side of the motifs, and then you're going to join in each motif and continue in a row sewing them together. So you're going to take your needle, and you can use any method that you want here to sew your squares. If you have a preference on how you sew your granny squares or how you seam your work together, you can do it however you want. I used the invisible seam method. So I'm going to take my needle, and I'm going to start by putting it in just the outer loops only of the center single crochet of the group of 5. So in the third single crochet on both sides is where I'm going to start to sew, and I'm just doing it in the outer loops only as I go up along the side. So I'm going to line up my squares and then make sure they're both starting in that third single crochet, and then I'm just going to pull my needle through, sandwiching them together and joining them. And then I'm going to take my needle and go from this direction back the opposite way, working in the outer loop only. Just pull it all the way through. And then I'm just going to do this all the way up the side of my square. So again, from the opposite direction, put it through both loops, pull all the way through. And you don't have to do it this way. You can do it whichever way that you prefer seaming. It really does not matter here. And then you're just going to sew up until you reach the stitch marker at the top corner to sew the sides together. Okay, so I've sewn up the sides of my 2 squares, stopping just before my stitch marker on the top corners, which is where the center third single crochet of the group of 5 are. And then if you're making the vest, you'll obviously have more squares which you need to join in. So you would just do the same exact thing, take your third square, place it on the second square, right sides facing, and make sure they're the same direction, and just sew up the side and repeat until all of your squares are joined in one long row. So once you have all your squares seamed together, you're going to be working a row across the top of them, and that is just to start off the back panel. So we're going to be working a row of single crochet across the top of all of our squares to join them and begin the back panel, and then we'll just be working in rows after that, working straight up. So I'm going to show you guys how to start that off to get you prepared to work the rest of the vest. Okay, so to start off row 1 of the back panel of my vest design, you're going to take your motifs here, and we're just going to start in the very top right corner of the row of motifs that we have. You're going to take a new piece of yarn, and then we're just going to slip stitch to join in that third single crochet of the group of 5 single crochets in the corner. So if you had placed your stitch markers, you would just put your hook where your stitch marker is. If you didn't, you can just count in from the edge 3 stitches and find that center single crochet, and then just put your hook through that top of the stitch and slip stitch to join. And this is going to be the edge here, and then you're just going to chain 1 and work 1 single crochet into that very same stitch, and just continue across working 1 single crochet in each one. So here's my second one, and then the third one into that last group of the 5 single crochet, and then just continue across the row working 1 single crochet into the top of each of your stitches. So if you have your squares facing the same direction as me, I'm just going to take that tail of yarn and pull it out of the way. You might not have joined them in the same direction, and that's totally fine, but if you did, just tug it out of the way and then make sure you don't accidentally skip over the single crochet where the join was. And then just continue in this way all the way across. For each square that you will have a total of 13 single crochet into the top of every single square that you made. And if you placed stitch markers, then it's really easy. You just work a single crochet all the way across until you reach that second stitch marker. And that second stitch marker is where your last single crochet will be for that square. So you'll have a total of 13 single crochet, working your last single crochet into the same spot as your stitch marker. So I'm just going to remove this stitch marker and work my final single crochet for a total of 13 for this square. And then to continue to the next square, you just work your first single crochet of the next square into the same spot as your stitch marker. So you can just remove it, and then in the same spot your stitch marker was, work your single crochet. So this will be the 14th single crochet, or the first single crochet of the top of the next square. So you're just going to work a regular single crochet and it pulls them together. And then you just work a single crochet in each remaining stitch all the way across. So again, 13 single crochet for every square. It's really simple to do. Just work all the way across until all of your squares are joined, and you have a total of 13 per square. Okay, so I've worked my way across, and again I'm going to work my last single crochet of the square into the same spot as the stitch marker, and then you would just keep continuing this exact same way. So if you were making the vest, you'd have a third square here, and you'd work your first single crochet into the same spot as the stitch marker, and all the way across with your last single crochet into the same spot as the other corner with the stitch marker. And you just repeat all the way across the row, joining all of your squares to complete row 1 of the vest. So this is what it'll look like once you join the motifs, and I've worked row 1 here for the extra small / small, and then the remainder of the vest is just half double crochet stitches. If you want to check out the full pattern, make sure you head to my blog for the free written pattern if you are making the vest. And thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial on the motifs and joining the motifs, and I will catch you guys in the next video.